Alrighty.
Oh, I'm just hearing them in there. That's fine, right?
Hello,
How you
guys.
doing?
Alrighty, my name is Ishrat, also known as Riyuu on Discord.
Hi, I'm Aniket. I'm known as Articus on Discord.
All right, and welcome to the opening night of NECC Overwatch for Purdue's varsity team. I'm really looking forward to this, especially having gone through the tryout process myself. It was very rigorous. I feel like everyone who made it absolutely deserved it. We have such a honestly amazing lineup for this semester's NECC varsity lineup, honestly. Yeah, no, I'm excited for this. It's going to be a best of 5 match. I wish I remembered who we were playing against, I'm going to be honest. But I believe St. Ambrose, thank you. Yeah, so we're going through the ban process right now in the background and just kind of waiting for things to get started. As far as I'm aware, I believe our team's going to be going for a lot of brawl type play. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Given what I know about these players, I know they're very inclined towards playing brawl. Ideally the bans also work out that way. I heard that the other team banned Winston as their first pick, so that might be good news for our team. Purdue then going on to ban Farah then in the background. This is, let's see. Let's hope that things go out in our favor. First map already being Lijiang Tower. It looks very, very good for our brawl or rush-based plans. I'm excited.
This makes sense. I mean, Fire is a pretty strong unit on this map, especially when you're playing Gardens or Night Market. Especially if the other team plans to play Mercy alongside, which they might. I definitely want to ban Fire here.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it definitely is very rough and forces you to play like a lot of more like long-range hit scan, like your Sojourn or your Freya. So if you aren't planning to do that, which I believe our team might not be as much, then that's a very good ban. And yeah, as far as what team comps that we'll expect from our team going forward, I believe we were talking earlier that Zarya is very, very strong right now in regards to the brawl. So that'll be very, very exciting to watch. Which we're about to start watching right now, TPing out from the spawn on Lijiang.
Oh, I think we have names swap.
We do have name swap on the top, but hopefully production will fix that. The enemy team playing Doomfist right at the start, playing into our Zarya-based comp as we predicted, going in with the aggressive slam, but not really getting too much out of it, and almost getting killed, but not quite. Our tank getting a pick on their Bastion. It seems like, yeah, this team comps might have a rough time against Purdue Varsity, considering that their tank is playing a very dive-heavy and their DPS are a little more stationary. So maybe Purdue Varsity might have a little bit of an advantage there, having already taken the space on the bridge in the center and capturing first point. The Doomfist trying to make space for his team as they're trying to come back from St. Ambrose, rotating in through White Room. The Tracer trying to poke out and scout ahead as best as they can on Purdue Varsity side. They're looking to push in through this White Room, but Purdue Varsity seems to be prepared, trying to push in with the Reaper. The Reaper centering in on that Bastion, getting a pick on him right away, presenting no issues for Purdue, and being able to clean up without an issue. Purdue's comp is definitely way stronger of a core, and it's very, very difficult to try and displace them here with the comp that St. Ambrose is running right now.
I mean, from the looks of it, Purdue's planning to run more so of a divey comp, with Zarya being able to enable them. And with St. Ambrose actually over here switching over to the Zarya, trying to enable their Bastion Torb a bit more.
Ooh, yeah, no, they took notes from something that I might have been saying. Now they're going to go with a more tighter core with the Bastion Torb, a lot more poke, a lot more immediate damage coming out from them. This might be a little rough then trying to push into them in the White Room, this tight and close space, but Neeb going in here, still trying to see if he can get someone low enough to walk in with the Zarya. Purdue going in with the Kitsune Rush to try and give them a little bit more momentum, going in with a Pulse Bomb to try and confirm a pick, not landing unfortunately, but still some trades being landed off from both sides. Trying to sustain themselves in the White Room with Bastion, but Alistair still getting a pick on the Lucio, very, very clutch. Purdue still able to hold up that momentum that was held up using that Kitsune Rush. Very good way to start a fight there. Going in and trying to get off these stagger picks in their spawn. Purdue's Zarya trying to make sure every last one of them dies, potentially getting more staggers, preventing them from getting one more fight in as this point comes to a close. A very clean 100-0 from Purdue. And no touch off either by the Lucio, unfortunately. That was very, very clean.
Yeah, that was a pretty tough match from St. Ambrose over here. I mean, they came off in a comp that was not exactly as best suited to go against Purdue's comp over here, which they're playing a lot more dive heavy, which allows them to punish their DPS a lot more, which want to play close to, which want to play a bit more back, where the Doomfist wants to actually go in a bit more. So when you're playing a bit split like that, it's far more easy to punch, especially when you have a lot more of a coordinated dive. With that, Zarya can stand the ground against the Doomfist and has the survivability to do so.
Absolutely.
Over here, we're getting some swaps over here. We got, I believe, we got a sim. I assume...
The classic sim TP.
Yeah, I don't know if it's temporary or if it's trying to get top of night market, but we'll see.
Ooh, they're TPing out of the spawn here. A little bit unfamiliar. I believe a lot of people tend to do the sim TP up into the window onto the point, but no, Purdue taking a little bit different and switching into the Tracer now. Seems like that might be Neeb's bread and butter, so they want to stick to that. Quickly taking in the space and pushing in on the side of St. Ambrose to make sure they can't just push in from main. The fight being taken onto the point. DPS on Purdue's side being taken down a little bit low, but they're still able to keep alive. It seems like both teams are fighting near and around the point, with both the DPS trying to push each other out through space. Very mobile DPS line on Purdue, so potentially an advantage there. Taking out the Bastion on St. Ambrose's side. And Zarya on St. Ambrose's side, though, not giving up and wanting to hold in the space, but our DPS are not letting them stay up, and unfortunately they could not sustain with that one pick being taken off of them early on. Slowly cleaning up, yep, picking up the scraps after having taken out their Bastion, which was very unfortunate. Yeah, this point I feel like is the flip side of what we saw in the previous point, where Purdue's DPS being a lot more mobile are able to self-sustain a lot better. Whereas St. Ambrose's DPS, which they just made the swap from the Torbjorn to the Reaper now to potentially find more mobility, maybe burst down any aggressive players on Purdue's side a lot better. The Pulse coming out and getting 2 on St. Ambrose's side, 3 for CVG Neeb, while they were waiting in that small space here, the small choke point. And Neeb took advantage of that with no problems whatsoever.
I mean, you can't. I mean, this is just dominance by Neeb over here on the Tracer over here. I mean, they cannot stop him at all.
And they pick off they pick up both supports in their spawn. Alistair getting antsy after getting 2. They say, we took them out in their spawn. We might as well get more. We swear we can. The absolute confidence from our Purdue team. I love this.
Over here, both Lucios have beat, but St. Ambrose does have their, what do you call it, Kitsune Rush. And Now, the question is, who's going to ult first?
Who's going to ult first?
Who's going to force out these Lucio beats?
The Reaper going in aggressive on top, high ground, but the potentially maybe that was a bait for the Gref. Who knows? Because going in aggressive like that on their own can be very ambitious, but it worked out to get this grab. And then picking up off of that, Abcasta grabbing 3, but then beating in response. Unfortunately not getting a pick because of it, and they see that he's low because he went in on that with not enough support potentially, but they're not able to pick him off because Abcasta is able to get the support that he needs. St. Ambrose trying to take the momentum back with the Kitsune Rush because of being able to take out their tank earlier on, and unfortunately they are able to push in Purdue for this fight.
Right.
You know, I completely understand the decision earlier to try and potentially bait out some ults, get people low with the Death Blossom, but unfortunately it did not play our way that round, but that's okay. Coming up on another Pulse, potentially another Kitsune Rush at the end of this fight with beat. Oh, unfortunately, Butter Lucio getting picked off at the beginning of the fight. That's not great. But Toodle on the Reaper getting 3 in response. They did not let our speed boost being missing stop him whatsoever. And then Neeb going in on the Tracer to get point presence off of that play.
Over here, they're trying to chase down this Lucio, and they boop him off.
Yep, the Kitsune coming out just to make sure that we have assistance to be able to pick up any stragglers, since this is the very last fight here for the end of the point. Trying to get cooldowns out of the Reaper from St. Ambrose and pick him off, and that they do. Going with the momentum with the beat since they didn't really need it defensively, and Purdue's able to clutch it out and take Lijiang 2-0.
Yeah. It's a pretty
Beautiful.
scrappy fight on the second map here.
A little bit.
And I think ultimately this was decided by the fact that St. Ambrose, ultimately, when they did get their ults off, they were able to get picks off on them, but the rest of the team as a total were not actually able to capitalize off the advantage they had, and more often than not allowed Purdue to use their other ults to ultimately win the fight, even though they're down 1 or 2.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like both of these teams are showing very well their knowledge of being able to play around momentum, which I love to see. I love seeing the really aggressive Kitsunes from Alistair on Purdue's side. Those are so fun to watch. Really trying to capitalize off of, even if they've just gotten 1 or 2 picks down, they say no. If we can get more, even if they're next to their spawn, we're going to do it. Which honestly makes sense that if they're able to pull it off with the skill, which they have, you know, it prevents the enemy team from being able to take another fight, which is amazing. So really, really good play from both sides, though, regardless.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Alistair being very aggressive, unlike their Kiriko. And I think ultimately that did allow them to win a couple of fights where you saw that, like, even though they lost members, Alistair, he got a pick. He basically turned the fight in that way. We're able to take advantage of that. And because ultimately the DPS of Purdue were able to consistently get picks more so than St. Ambrose. And with that with that support basically acting as a third DPS in some of these fights, allowed them to take the advantage, push in, and St. Ambrose eventually just fell each fight because they could not keep up the amount of picks that Purdue were getting on their team.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like that is the biggest advantage of us having a flex support like Alistair. Him having had a background as actually playing as a flex DPS gives him such a huge advantage because, like you said, having almost a third DPS on our team means that even if one of us goes down, we actually have 2 more. And then, you know, Abcasta, our tank, being able to stay up and also maintain energy on Zarya, that's its own DPS power. You know, everyone being able to stick together properly as a core, or at least being able to go off in chunks of 2 or 3 so people aren't getting picked off as much. Very, very coordinated play here, which I love to see, because our team has only really been together now. I mean, some players are familiar with each other, but our team fully has only been together now for, I want to say, a couple of weeks. Which, yeah, to get to this level of coordinated play, like, absolutely is incredible, you know, and this speaks to our, not to toot our own horns here, but I feel like we have to, the absolute, you know, incredible skill behind all of our players.
I mean, of course. I mean, I don't think there's a single player on our team that did anything really bad this fight. I mean, you know, obviously we were singing praises to Neeb here, but, like, we should also talk about the fact that Toodle, when they were down a fight, managed to turn it around by getting 3 picks, right? And that's a big fight when ultimately you're about to win, you don't want them to overtake the point, and that allows Neeb to actually go to the point and recap it after it's taken, which effectively allowed them to keep up the members they had, let their people get back into the fight while their enemy teams was getting back into the fight as well. And so now you're already at an advantage going into final fight. And now the enemy team is already pressured to get to point because you can't just fight on the outside like you would at any other point. You're forced to get to point, which allows them to pretty much position in a way to punish them coming in.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they're able to react off of each other so quickly and so efficiently, which is beautiful. I know that our team is probably going to be wanting to pick more maps like Lijiang. Lijiang is a very snowball heavy map too, which played in Purdue's favor here, that once they're able to capture the point once, it is very difficult, especially for the kind of team that we're playing that does really well sticking together as a core, to try and shake them off because they have a position there. They have a lot of cover there. So, ideally they get to play more maps like that, more brawl heavy maps. I don't know about control points. I'm pretty sure with NECC, I believe there is a format to which map types get played for each map. So I'm not sure which map is being played next, but I'm sure we'll find out here in just a moment. But yeah, no, I feel like, one thing now I'm very concerned about is clearly St. Ambrose is going to be learning. And yeah, it seems like we're going to be playing Saravasa next, which Yano is very, very good for playing the style that we want to play. Purdue having banned Orisa, St. Ambrose having banned Reaper. They did not like seeing Tootle playing the Reaper. They saw how much high risk, high reward he plays, and seeing another map that could very much play into the style that Purdue plays in, they said, no, we're not enabling that Reaper gameplay. So
I'm a bit surprised with the Reaper ban and not the Tracer ban, because obviously when you saw St. Ambrose making the switches, they obviously had a Reaper player on there. I don't know if he was trying to play something that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with, but I feel especially with Neeb, this also being Saravasa, you want to try to disable his Tracer, make sure he cannot play it at all, because obviously as a great hit scan player, he can flex over, but I feel like especially throughout the majority of that map, Tootle was obviously a great Reaper as well. Neeb was kind of unstoppable, and having that Reaper in your own back pocket is also going to be nice.
Absolutely, yeah. And going in from out here, let's see, Tootle now adapting to take on the Genji in a hazard-based comp with BAP and Lifeweaver. This is going to be interesting. Not nearly as slow and sustained as Zarya, but not too far away, given that Hazard can kind of jump in and out and live for a very long time. So a little different, a little more mobile, but also not nearly as much. And St. Ambrose still sticking to the Zarya. Already in the beginning getting a pick on the Sojourn, who might have been a little overextended, and Abcast noting that very, very quickly. Going in from an off angle here, not necessarily from the right side like is typical for people on this map. He just goes in straight onto the Bastion. He says, you're stationary, I'm going for you. He takes him out without an issue, and then goes for the Zarya next. Wow, yeah, no, that, as I was about to say, that is the advantage of the comp that they're playing currently here, Purdue, that it caters to the playstyle that they were previously playing on Lijiang, but provides them just that little bit more mobility that you want on a Flashpoint map. Neeb emoting there while they have extra time to wait, because why not? Setting up here on the high ground, Alistair. The beauty of BAP is being able to sit on these high grounds like this, which I absolutely love to do. Waiting in on seeing where the enemy team is going to come from, probably having our DPS and our tank scouting, our Lifeweaver looking after Baptiste in case he gets poked out way too much. It seems like they're coming in a little bit on an aggressive with the Bastion. They'll probably try to look out for him again, which they do, but unfortunately the Bastion on St. Ambrose's side getting a pick on our Lifeweaver and our Baptiste. That's not looking too great for our tank and our DPS. That's very unfortunate. Maybe, who knows, maybe Purdue got a little bit antsy just waiting too long for them to come onto this point here from St. Ambrose's side.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously St. Ambrose made a switch over to Hazard, which obviously is a very strong character right now alongside Zarya. And I think the big issue that happened that fight is that pretty much Lifeweaver got pressured at the top, and when they tried to pull over their Baptiste, they still got split up, and that was the big issue. Instead of sticking together, peeling each other, they ended up getting split up, forcing them to focus on each other rather than the DPS and tank, which let the whole team just fall apart.
Absolutely, but now Purdue coming in with 1 and almost 4 ults, which will be interesting to see which ones they use here. Engaging with the Tree of Life here, but the enemy responding with the Kitsune Rush. Unfortunately, the Lucio getting picked out by Neeb, the Tracer, but Neeb getting punished for it, potentially maybe having gone too far into the backline, and our Baptiste getting picked out too as a result.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of separation that happened. That Baptiste obviously got isolated with the hazard, and there's not much he can really do there. Put up his lamp, he used a shift. There's not, like, it's an unfortunate situation, but Hazard will absolutely dominate that matchup.
Absolutely, yeah, no, Hazard's big thing is he loves to just catch out people, even if they're in the middle of the team. Going in with the Hazard ult to try and catch out the Bastion. That is stationary already. Bastion, unfortunately, trying to respond and killing himself in the process, which I understand. Toodle getting a pick in on their Lucio. Us responding with the window to make sure we keep up any momentum so people don't get picked off. And Purdue's able to take back the point with St. Ambrose having it at 99%. There might still be potential here for one more fight with a St. Ambrose coming in with the Bastion ult and potentially a Sojourn overclock and maybe even a Lucio beat if the fight lasts that long. But no, it's too far from Spawn to come in a coordinated manner. The Bastion, though, maybe hoping that that would have happened. And the Lucio, unfortunately, then getting picked off. You know, I understand there with there being like probably 80-ish% left. They're probably being like, maybe one more fight, just maybe. They were at 90%, but no, it's tough to get there at that percentage with how quickly the points tick past on Flashpoint. And now moving on to the next point here.
Yeah, I mean, both teams have both teams have ults right now. I think we're reaching up about to life level.
Might engage blade here. I had a feeling they might engage blade here, especially on the Bastion, but no, not getting a pick here. Switching targets mid blade unfortunately didn't work out very well, but that's okay.
And over here,
going in and trying to capitalize and put pressure in on the enemy Hazard. Both Hazards duking it out, but unfortunately Aaron isn't able to maintain that. Abcasta getting picked off here. The engage blade there was a very, very good try. And I believe like a good choice because they were in a choke point there, but unfortunately just with the Bastion shift, the Genji was not able to live just long enough. Now St. Ambrose trying to keep the space that they have maintained and engaging with that Kitsune rush, which is rough. Purdue responding maybe with an ult. Doesn't seem like it.
I mean, Purdue kind of just collapsed here. I mean, this is old Bastion shift as well as a Hazard ult. They can't really do too much about that. And obviously, I'm surprised that St. Ambrose actually managed to maintain both their DPS ults coming into the next fight. I mean, obviously there's Tree, but the question is how much can Tree stop you from the one shot of a Sojourn ult? I mean,
exactly, yeah, no, Kitsune is a very strong engage ult, and us on Purdue's side switching over to the Ana actually is very, very interesting here. Maybe them wanting to capitalize on the anti-nade to punish the Bastion or the Hazard a little bit more. Engaging with the Tree of Life here and then going in on it to have a little bit more of that sustain, getting the Bastion, who is now standing still, to ult, but the Bastion getting Toodle in response. That's okay, though, because it seems like Purdue capitalized on having that point space staying to the tree and pushed in on St. Ambrose here.
Oh,
Neeb trying to go in on that Kiriko and finish her off because we have an advantage, but unfortunately getting picked off, but that's okay. Purdue maintained their space here on the point.
I mean, I think this Ana swap actually might be possibly for the Nano, for the Blade, because after all,
yeah.
we saw last fight, Toodle kind of got just shredded
That
as soon
is
as you
so
tried
true.
to go in. And with the amount of damage you have a Bastion and a Sojourn, including a Hazard, right? You might want that Blade to increase your lethality as well as your protection.
Oh, they're engaging here with the overclock, seeing if they can push them off the point, but Purdue seems to have been potentially ready for that, and they were not ready to just sit in the open for it. You know, sitting way back, trying to see if they can catch someone off on an angle here, potentially that being the Sojourn on St. Ambrose's side, and it will be alongside others. Taking the point here after having gotten their picks here. It seems like Purdue loves playing this kind of like divide up and swarm around them type strategy. You know, collapsing in on all sides around people who are being caught out alone. And that's exactly what they did there. Now this last fight coming in on the second point, Purdue coming in with this pulse bomb here, potentially maybe a Blade. St. Ambrose maybe having a Kitsune rush that they might look to engage with if they can charge it fast enough, but no, and they have their Sojourn get picked, potentially trying to touch, but the Hazard getting 2 picks in. This is looking like a very close fight here as they're trying to hold their own on the point, potentially some overextensions here that the enemy is able to capitalize on. Still trying to maintain touch here, not able to really maintain their health very well. But Purdue will still be able to hold despite the 2 early picks from St. Ambrose's Hazard. That looked very close there for a second. You know, maybe Purdue got a little bit too antsy for 2 seconds, wanting to make sure they didn't touch the point at any cost. You know, that is the that is the danger of that comes with this kind of like divide and swarm from all sides strategies. You can't let yourself get caught out like that if they have a very skilled Hazard or Sojourn or anything like that, which they seem to very much. Engaging with this Hazard ult because it seems like the enemy team was overextended, seeing if they could get picks, but they didn't. Actually getting 2 picks taken from Purdue's side, but Purdue still able to keep up that momentum. They do not quit even when they have 1 or 2 people down whatsoever. But unfortunately still getting picked off because of the early picks that were taken here from Purdue's side. Very interesting place to take a fight here in this weird little alleyway between the 2 points, but I understand because Purdue saw that they were kind of overextended in this little hallway. I heard the Hazard ult from, say, Ambrose's side. Didn't really have a view of where that was. I believe that was potentially on the point to catch out someone who was there trying to contest the point, but it didn't really seem to get anybody. The Kitsune Rush being tossed out here to try and maintain that momentum since the ult didn't get much. They see the Ana here, the Ana being that stationary target. She's looking juicy. They want to see if they can get her. Going after the Kiri too, since she's using cooldowns on her. The Hazard, unfortunately, either getting booped or jumping off the map.
I think a combination of both.
I think a combination of both.
Wow.
That's extremely rough, yeah.
That's a huge fight win from Purdue. I mean, they managed to win this without using either Blade or Pulse Bomb, right?
Yeah, no, that is huge. Oh my god, 3 people getting anti-nated by Alistair sitting in the back line, and they did not see it. And he's able to stay alive and not get picked off. That is insane. Pulse bombing the Bastion as he ults to CVG Neeb. Alistair still managing to stay alive despite that crazy flank, and Neeb cleaning up everyone while they're staring at this Ana in their backline they were not expecting.
Yeah, and we see Purdue over here trying to chase, but deciding to back up a little bit as you see the team's kind of regrouped. Obviously now, with the ults they have, they want to at least try to get a big Blade, but it's going to be a bit
definitely
hard
looking for a Blade here.
Without that Nano right now. Oh, they dropped the beat.
Waiting for the beat. They expected something from the Genji potentially and engaged in beat early, which might be good for Purdue in the future, but probably not right now because Tootle got picked off early, but Neeb able to make up for it by taking out Ambrose's Sojourn here. Now the Hazard's trying to look to contest each other. Now that Cast is trying to get onto the point and take space potentially, and trying to go in aggressive on that stationary Ana, but not getting anything because Ariana knows how to defend herself. Trying to capitalize on these 3 squishies here in a small alleyway. The Hazard ult and preventing them from getting a proper fight onto that last point. 3-0. Not dropping a single point there, despite there being some very, very close fights there. But Purdue never gave up, despite losing people in fights or despite losing the point at times. But we continued to maintain that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game honestly showed St. Ambrose actually improving because I feel like, especially early on, they got punished. They didn't know what to do against this dive, but then they swapped over and they managed to make their dive of their own. And they actually started to fight back a little bit. And Purdue, you could see Purdue was struggling a little bit, especially on that second point. But Purdue obviously adapted back in their own way. And the thing is, I feel like it was a bit of the same issues as last game where a lot of the times St. Ambrose would take an advantage, but they never could really capitalize on it because of how scattered, like you said, how scattered Purdue plays. Even if you kill one person, you can't exactly go target the other person. And because of how individually that Purdue's players are so good, that it doesn't really matter whether it's Alistair, whether it's Sneeb, whether it's Tuda, whether it's Abcasta, whether it's even Alistair, right? Going on those flanks. Individually, they can all get their picks, they can all get their kills, and it doesn't, they can't really do anything about that because it's just like, you kill one, it's a team effort to kill one, but it just takes one of them to kill one of you guys.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's a huge thing about Overwatch's 5v5 format that not a lot of people talk about, or at least anymore, which obviously everyone can have their opinions about whether they like 6v6 or 5v5, but one thing that definitely changed is everyone does need to play for themselves so much more, whether you're playing support, DPS, or tank. You need to know how to live, and you need to know how to go after who is coming after you. And I think Purdue displays that extremely well, just like you said, no matter what they're playing. And yeah, on top of that too, like I was saying earlier, just to hammer that home, they might lose their tank, they might lose their main source of healing, but they do not back down. They still go in and try and get picks and sometimes come out with 2 or 3 and completely turn the fight. Which, yeah, no, this kind of like more mobile play style was not too far off, but still very different from what we saw from Lijiang, which is where they were playing a lot more kind of sort of grouped together around their tank. But this time around, they were able to just scatter to the wind, and then still kind of collapse in on each other or collapse around the enemy team, and then home in on the point altogether to take it. Yeah, no, this is extremely, extremely coordinated play, and I love it. It's such good Overwatch to watch.
And that's kind of just the nature of Flashpoint, honestly. I mean, like Alistair obviously going into Kiri, you even saw in the last match, he's just going extremely aggressive here, right? And actually, speaking of maps, we're actually going to Gibraltar next.
Ooh, this will be interesting because, yeah, that you can't really play that like just walk forward into the enemy team type style here. This is the map where you need that high ground control and that high ground mobility. So while some teams I've definitely seen play Hazard here, you know that you definitely see that Winston and that Diva for sure. And yeah, so seeing here, I know for sure that Abcast does not abstain from playing that Winston in actually tryouts earlier this semester, which were streamed to our channel. I was able to have the honor of playing with Abcasta, and I believe Alistair also played flex support on that map, so I'm vaguely familiar with what Purdue might go with. You know, I'm predicting the Winston, the Tracer, the classic Ana Brig, potentially. And as for that... Potentially Genji. Yeah, I was going to say that last DPS is a little bit of a mystery to me because while Genji does seem like a very good pick, I've also seen the CVB Neeb Widowmaker go crazy. He is a definite hit scan prodigy, so I'm very excited to see that. And speaking of which, St. Ambrose seems to have responded to Purdue in banning the Tracer this time around, like you were predicting last time, and Purdue having banned the Kiriko, which is very interesting. Potentially, I mean, actually, now that I think about it, with Purdue wanting to play the Ana, that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes so much sense.
Because the enemy team really only played Kiriko on both maps, and obviously Alistair, we saw, has a really great Ana. And I assume that, obviously, with Ana, Monkey, we can't have a Tracer, but I assume that means Neve will go on hit scan. The question now is what is Toodles going to play? Is he going to play the Genji? Maybe he plays the Reaper. He might play something else. And another question is, are we going to see Astro Big, the Astro Brig? We're going to see him play another character, possibly, like maybe a Lifeweaver.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, they're... You know, it entirely, I think, depends on what Astro's comfortable with and entirely what the playstyle wants to be, because I know Alistair does play a lot more aggressive. So, yeah, there is the potential for the Lifeweaver there to let Alistair kind of do his thing and then let the Lifeweaver kind of pull him back when needed. And, yeah, like you said, if we don't have a Tracer is usually very common for the mobile potential flex DPS pick. And I knew it. I knew the Neeb Widowmaker might come out this time, and I'm excited. Some good Widowmaker gameplay on Gibraltar is always fun to watch, but the one concern being St. Ambrose seems to be going Sombra. That's not great for a Widowmaker. So this will be interesting. And both teams playing Diva as well. I was not prepared for. I feel like Winston's usually the de facto pick here.
Yeah, I think he's particularly strong in the current meta. So
that makes sense.
I'm a bit surprised. But maybe it's possibly because they're playing Bastion and Widowmaker. You do want that peel from the Diva, especially with the dive characters in Genji. And,
they already saw the Sombra, and they were able to pick her out. They knew that they were potentially sitting on that high ground. They wanted to clear the high ground for their snipers here, their Ana and their Widowmaker, which makes sense. They did go with the Lifeweaver pick here on Purdue's side, just like you predicted. So we'll see how that goes. Using that to get people onto the high ground. You know, I didn't consider that, but that makes a lot of sense. Using Lifeweaver's pedal, using it to get quick high ground access for Purdue. You know, St. Ambrose a little bit on the back foot here because they had that Sombra picked off from them, and Purdue was able to quickly gain some high ground control with the mobility that they have.
I do have a question as to how St. Ambrose wants to play this, because now they're getting...
getting a pick on Toodle because they try to corner them in that little corner there, which understandably so. They're trying to capitalize on the advantage they have. Alistair unfortunately being alone, but getting in the view of the Lifeweaver and getting pulled out, thankfully. Neeb trying to get a shot on the Sombra, but she's a tricksy one. She gets out just with 1 HP. But she's able to get her anyway! He knew that he might have been going in on our backline core that's waiting in that little side room.
And over here, we see that obviously Team St. Ambrose wants to bunker here with their Bastion because they have far more damage. But the question is, can their Diva protect from the Alistair nade?
Not trying to kill the baby Diva just yet. Maybe they're trying to stagger her, which is typically a common option, but very dangerous to do, so they try to finish her off. It's very interesting here how both teams are fighting on the low ground. Usually in Gibraltar, a lot of teams tend to be fighting for that high ground space, but it just so happens that both teams are here, and they're able to get this backline that's just cornered into this little space, unfortunately.
Yeah, that Alistar nade on the D.Va was kind of massive because it prevented any healing from going in, and he just got bursted down. I was about to say that if the Alistar gets a big nade into that bunker, they are kind of screwed because there's nothing they can do about that in that little bunker because they don't have a Kiri. Kiri's banned, obviously. So that nade is going to make or break Purdue's winning chances in some of these fights.
Neve getting a quick pick on that D.Va while she's bombing, not letting her remech whatsoever. That is a crazy shot from him. And Abcasta, even though he is demeched, still getting that pick on the Bastion, not letting himself go down without a fight. Maybe flexing that kill a little bit. That's all right. A little bit of playful sportsmanship is all right sometimes here and there. Yeah, now Purdue coming in with a Nano Blade, but no. Nanoing the Widowmaker. That's interesting.
Really?
I think it was potentially because they were getting dove on the high ground and they wanted to save her life. So sometimes Nano is very good there, especially with Neve being such a important piece here. Just the Widowmaker having a sheer presence onto the point is important. That's a little unfortunate, the Widow wanting to grapple away but not being able to. The EMP coming out and getting 4 on Purdue's side isn't great, but the Tree of Life is still up. That used to be a thing before where it wasn't after EMP, but it still is. Alistar picking off the other Ana on St. Ambrose's side, just sitting on the low ground, confident that he'll stay alive, having so much trust in his life lever, and he does. So St. Ambrose's D.Va is just not able to take him down.
Sustain from Purdue supports here is kind of insane. Neve almost died, managed to back up, gets healed. Alistar should have died there, I'm going to be honest, but that was perfect heal from D.Va.
Yeah, our life lever is just absolutely staring him down and making sure he does not die. The Bastion here taking a very aggressive stance here, trying to pick off Abcasta here since he's 1 HP in his mech, making sure they do not cap the point here. And they're able to take him off out of mech, unfortunately. But they're not able to kill him in baby D.Va form. And potentially he's able to get away. Neve's still holding that top of spaceship space with no abandon whatsoever. Alistar on their high ground near their spawn. Unfortunately, though, Neve getting picked off by the Sombra finally, which is not great. Alistar getting a pick on the Bastion and just existing in their backline and unfortunately getting punished for it now eventually.
That was a weird little fight. I mean, they split up. I mean, not to say... I mean, Alistar probably shouldn't have gone so far back. Maybe stay there to help his life weaver, right? That would have been a help. That would have probably kept them in the fight a bit longer. But at the same time, they have time, but they need to be able to win this fight or the next because, like, time is closing in on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Purdue coming in with the D.Va Bomb, which will probably just be saved for sustain. That's usually the common option. Alistar coming up on the Nano here. Might use it aggressively, potentially, because the blade hasn't come through just yet. Yep, using it aggressively on the D.Va to make sure her life is saved and she does not get demech during this fight. But the D.Va on St. Ambrose's side being very committed onto trying and take her down. Takes down the mech, but we had D.Va Bomb, so we're able to remech very quickly. Toodle on 1 HP, just barely able to get out and get peeled by our life lever. Unfortunately, we do lose a little bit of that spaceship space, but that's okay, because we're still trying to hold it as best as we can onto that bridge. Neve just sitting there on the low ground, because he is confident he can still assert his dominance there. Toodle getting a pick in this little corner of the 3 of St. Ambrose, just sitting there. You know, even if you die, sometimes getting that pick is worthwhile, because it helps you win the fight, especially when Alistar just has a no fear and can sit on the cart and hold the space there, pushing them to that second cap there. Running into the Sombra, getting a sleep on her. It does not matter that he is hacked. Alistar is very confident in being able to defend himself, as we've seen time and time again. Peeling for Neve. Neve trying to take that back high ground space, which is so important to him. This point is crucial for getting this high ground space for both of our snipers. Alistar already up on that forward high ground there, but unfortunately getting pushed out because the D.Va probably wants that space or saw him rotating. So we'll see what they do here. Them having the life lever pedals is huge here. Getting the EMP off on all 5 on Purdue's side. That's crazy. Unfortunately getting pick on Neve as a result. And getting the D-Mech up on Abcasta, but they're able to punish the D.Va, who probably overextended on that EMP. That EMP was crazy. Getting all 5 is insanely difficult.
That was a very good EMP from St. Ambrose here. And I do realize that a lot of the times, what a lot of the Life Weaver pedals are being used is to get Alice to the hop high ground so you can try to get a nade. But the problem with this is sometimes...
going in with the aggressive blade here since all 5 of them were grouped up here. But unfortunately, only getting 1. Hey, sometimes getting that 1 pick, like I said, worthwhile. Took out that Sombra threat, but 2 of us unfortunately getting picked off as a result. But we have 3 else here. Unfortunately, our Life Weaver going down, so he can't use the Tree of Life to defend himself. Using the Nano to potentially save and boost the D.Va's ability to protect herself, potentially hold that space to wait till the DPS are able to come back. Especially because the D.Va Bomb is there to be able to remech here. D.Va Bomb very often being used to do so rather than to get picks because, you know, at this level of play, you can often see a D.Va Bomb coming and just run away. So why not use it for the extra life? Trying to get Neeb here, who is sitting on the low ground. The D.Va advances and bombs because she had that. She's able to go in aggressive. Unfortunately, Tuno getting picked off by the remech there. Or no, picking off the remech there. Sorry, excuse me. I got it backwards. The Bastion getting slept there during his tank form, so he can't apply as much pressure. This point is a little rough here since they have space here from St. Ambrose, so we cannot get the full 3-point cap here.
Yeah, it was a tough match. I mean, I think that Purdue had a very strong start at the very beginning, and they were able to punish St. Ambrose for whatever mistakes they did. But I think near the end, they started splitting up a bit more with their comps, where their Ana would go on a flank a bit more, and their Life Weaver would be a bit more alone, whereas the DPS would try to go for the picks alongside their tank. And not to say that it was a bad move, but St. Ambrose definitely were able to react and punish Purdue when they would try to make those flanks and the changes, where Alistair went on the top, or Alistair tried to go on the flank. And it worked. And they won several fights based off that. But at some point, you kind of got to rein it back a little bit because St. Ambrose clearly learned what they were doing. And a lot of times when Alistair tried to go around, Purdue would immediately get punished by the dive by St. Ambrose.
Yeah, there being so much, verticality to this map and so many high grounds, it's very easy to just barely get out of the line of sight of somebody who's able to save you, even if you're able to protect yourself very, very well. With how much you have to walk back to get any sort of help from anybody sometimes. Sometimes, no matter how well you're able to protect yourself, it does not work out very well. One thing I definitely have kind of mentally taken a note of, but I think is worth mentioning here, is how much they are on St. Ambrose's side sticking to the Bastion and how much that does kind of punish a lot of Purdue Varsity's dives, because that's very, very difficult to go after with a D.Va or a Genji at times. So that'll be an interesting way to see how they try to punish him, especially with St. Ambrose here on the attack.
We could see the Bastion actually doing a lot of pressure in that.
Yep, just like how they were able to punish Tuno there, unfortunately. Yep, but Neeb still trying to take out, taking out the enemy healer, a sniper there on Ana. So for a 1-for-1 pick here, they didn't exactly lose too much space there on Purdue's side. St. Ambrose's D.Va trying to take that high ground space, as is typical to do on this map, but getting shredded as a result and getting demeched. So they're going to have to wait for that mech to come back, but that'll take a little longer because they're able to get that D.Va mech and that baby D.Va pick. Oh, they did not know that Alistair was there. Alistair didn't take the aggressive approach there to try and punish the Bastion. He just wanted to maintain... He knew he was alone there for once. And didn't want to take too much of a risk there, which is great.
I'm looking at St. Ambrose, and I think their maintaining of the Sombra Bastion is helpful here, against the Widow especially, because it minimizes the amount of targets that can actually be headshot and killed by Neeb here. Because he can only really go for the Brig and Ana, and the Brig is kind of hard because of the shield, and the Ana is always playing so far back.
Yeah, Purdue took that space up on the bridge there to see if they could go in and try and pick off people on that high ground there, that left high ground from the attacking spawn that a lot of people tend to want to set up on because of the rotation that can go up to the bridge from there. And Purdue said that they wanted to preemptively take that space while they were trying to set up, and it worked out in their favor. And as a response now, St. Ambrose playing the Winston to potentially be able to live a lot better with the help of that Winston bubble. going in on the Ana, being able to potentially single her out from her monkey when the monkey jumped up onto the high ground, going in on the dive here in this small room. Seeing if we can get a pick off of that, but it seems like, oh, we did eventually. I was going to say no, but it worked out in the end. Neeb getting a pick somehow in that small room too, even though he's set up onto the bridge high ground. He is not stopping, keeping an eye on them, no matter how unadvantageous the angle might be. The Sombra being on him as well. He went onto the low ground. He did not care. But getting peel from our Life Weaver. Ana, unfortunately, though, as a result, not getting peel and getting picked off on Purdue's side. And the monkey on St. Ambrose's side able to take that high ground space.
Yeah, with the monkey switch, we can actually see there's a lot of pressure relieved on Appcaster because D.Va ultimately does have the advantage on the damage basis against the monkey and can help peel her supports better. But now the big question here is, how is the enemy team going to deal with the monkey a bit more? Because monkey ultimately does have far more range and ability to pressure the supports and Widow more than a D.Va.
Yep, monkey has a lot more of that sustainability to be able to have that shield dance people. Oh, they were able to punish the Sombra, who was a little antsy, kept going in back and forth, understandably so, but finally able to get that pick on her. They were tracking her like a hawk, so they have a little less pressure there on St. Ambrose's side. Looks like they catch out the Hanzo somewhere there and get the pick on him as well with a nade from Alistair. Unfortunately, Neeb sitting on the low ground is as ambitious as ever. They were able to get the pick on him as well. Alistair getting pulled out when getting pulled in by the monkey, or poked out by the monkey, excuse me. And maintaining the control of that high ground with the primal rage that he had for a while. He needs to stall here from St. Ambrose's side to be able to have another fight here, which they definitely are looking to, especially because they have EMP and Rally here, two very big fight-winning ults on St. Ambrose's side. All of them grouped up onto the point, understandably so. They do not want to get that C9 on accident. They want to give out as much as they can. Getting two on Purdue's side with the EMP. Doesn't matter though, Toodle's still able to resist the EMP and get the blade off. Get two very big picks here. One of those being the Brig, who had just rallied, which is very, very big. So Purdue's able to clutch it out in the end, getting a 3-0 in this best of 5.
That was a very good match. We can see that Purdue, especially on that defensive end, started to play far more together than they did maybe say in their offense, and they did not let anyone down. And even if they did, got a bunch of huge picks. Honestly, gotta give a huge amount of credit to Appcaster for a lot of the times when he got separated with the supports, he would often do a lot more than the St. Ambrose tank in trying to punish the enemy DPS. I mean, saw near the end, you know, St. Ambrose's tank went in, primaled, and he only got a pick on Neeb because Neeb was just out of sight for anyone. The rest of the team managed to like, stay together, but you saw that Appcaster managed to get 2 picks, and that was vital in them winning that fight because ultimately, as long as your supports stay alive and you don't die, you can always come back, stay healed. Whereas, you know, St. Ambrose, ultimately, they just died in the end of the day, and their tank kind of just had to go back for Mega and couldn't get that much advantage in the end of the fight.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that beautiful balance between obviously being able to stay alive yourself, going in and potentially getting picks to reduce pressure, but also being able to peel, especially with the way that Overwatch 2 functions now with the single tank, being able to